everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Amigos Podcast. This is Gila.
This is Josh.
This is Juve.
And today is a day where we talk about Juve's pick.
Yep.
Yeah, that was such a weird start. I think because for the first time, I'm really considering how I started the episodes, and now they're all watching me, and I feel really awkward.
I'm watching closely.
So, anyway.
I thought you were going to say it was because of the movie pick.
No, it's literally because of, like, the idea. I don't know why. Anyway, we're not going to get into it. But, yeah, today we're going to talk about Juve's pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, I'm glad I watched it. I'll just start off with that.
All right.
And
good start.
we'll go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Juve, you start.
I'll start, but first, I'll ask Josh the same question Gila answered.
Uh-huh.
Are you glad you watched it?
Yes, I'm very glad I watched it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I feel the same way with you guys. So this week's month's episode's pick,
Yep.
it was mine, and I chose to watch The Pianist, and from 2002, I believe.
That's right.
Directed by Roman Polanski.
Yep.
And the reason I chose this film was because I'd watched other movies of his, or the ones that I've seen, at least Chinatown, Repulsion. Those are great films.
Yeah.
And going into this film, knowing the things that he has done as in the director, I still knew that from everything I've heard about The Pianist, it was still a great piece of art or film. And not that you have to set aside the things that the director has done, which are bad things, but definitely I wanted to see the film because I knew it was good.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I watched it. Definitely, it was great. All the elements of it, we can get into it. But that's the reason I chose the film, because I knew going in. Now, what I didn't know going in was the level of, I guess, Nazi war crimes and violence that was going to be in the film. But I should have guessed, knowing that if you read the description, you know that it's like they're in Warsaw, Poland, during the Nazi occupation.
Yeah.
And so, but definitely didn't know it was going to be that, I guess, graphic or violent. But I'm definitely glad I watched it.
Good.
I thought it was going to be more piano playing
Yes.
than, actual war stuff.
Yeah, which the piano playing was very good, but few and far between. So you definitely feel it. You feel the difference.
The piano playing was like the shark in Jaws.
Yeah, just enough.
Just enough. Yeah, I went in this blind. I had no idea who directed it. I had no idea who... Like, I just kind of knew the guy because of that, Like, I knew him. I've seen him around.
Okay.
And that's it. Not personally, but like,
You've heard his name before.
I've heard his name, and I've also
director,
heard both the director
Adrian Brody. Okay.
And I've heard the director. I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. Why? And then when they brought up everything, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what. Okay, cool, got it. But because I didn't know anything about it, I was able to just look at it in the most unbiased way, just as a film in general. I personally don't like movies like this. That's why I've never watched Schindler's List. I rather read about them.
Okay.
Just because seeing them, I don't know. I went through a lot while watching this movie. And I think good. Because, and that's kind of why I said I'm glad I watched it. I think it definitely, it's a really important topic to discuss. And I think besides the person that created it, the fact that this film exists in general, it definitely opens a lot of discussion. And just, it's, I guess the best way I could say it, it's really cool to see that this represents, like, usually we see a more like an outsider perspective coming in, trying to help. But like the fact that this man was a pianist, he was a musician, he was a creative, he was somebody who just loved music. His family obviously encouraged that. And then to go through what they did, like people like him, to go through what they did during World War II, like you could kind of like see that even somebody as, I guess, more tame or calm as someone that plays the piano, beautiful music.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that something horrible like that happened to someone like him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or his family or people around him. Like I feel like choosing him to be this is based on a book from what I saw in the credits, but like for someone like him to be the main character of this, and it's not about him like going to spoiler alert, going to a labor camp, or it's just him genuinely surviving with what he knows, and it's not much. It's just he plays the piano. That's his thing. He loves art, and he did what he could for his family with that. And when he couldn't do that anymore, he figured out a way to survive with what he knew. It's not like he like knew how to fight or like and that kind of, to me, that's what made him more like, I don't know how to put it in words, I guess. I'm sure once you guys talk more about it, I'll be like, yeah, that's what I meant. But I'm glad I watched it. And like I said, I came in this totally unbiased about like the director and the like anything like that. I had no idea. I just watched it. And it was on my list. If I had known that it was what it was about, maybe I wouldn't have put it in my list. Yeah. But I'm glad I did watch it. I'm glad I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie's been on my watch list for a long time, too. And I think, just to address a couple of the things that you guys have both mentioned, like, I think it's possible to enjoy art, like, despite the artist, and, like, to have that separation. In my head, that's something that I don't struggle with too much. Like, I don't think you're necessarily supporting a problematic person by watching what they make or consuming their whatever necessarily, but I guess that's another type of conversation. But I forgot that he had directed this movie until the end when it came up in the credits. I was like, oh right, that's right. And yeah, I was very moved by this movie. It's very I guess you could say realistic. I don't know if I should say realistic or naturalistic in the way that it shows. It's very gritty and I guess matter of fact in the way that it shows the suffering of the Polish people. So that's something that it makes it hurt more when you have like a beautiful flower, being crushed by the boot of war. Like, because that's basically the story here is like, how long can this person manage to survive in the city? And it was years and years and years of just horrifying things left and right, so much so that they became commonplace. And that's the worst part of it, is that you became desensitized to it. Like, what more could possibly happen? And then more possibly happens. But yeah, I do think it's a necessary conversation. And the film conveys, I think it conveys what it wants to convey well. I think it accomplished its goal well. So that's something that I give a lot of credit for.
Yeah, I agree with the things you guys are saying. And it definitely more than the subject matter, which is impressive in its own regard. What impressed me also was the sets. Oh yeah. And the care that went into making it look like we were in Warsaw in 1939 and 1940s. There was a scene where you see like a wasteland, I guess, like a street, and now that you mentioned, sorry, you see a street, and you mentioned that a lot more of it is CGI than you think, and that's true. It definitely has to be, because that set, to create that set would be incredible. But also they made it look so good that I thought it was real. Yeah. And the streets just look like we were there, and then and from one second to the other, they look so colorful and like vibrant, and people walking around in their hats, and it's cold. And then the next day, it's like, they're bombing all the buildings and everything's on fire. Yeah. So I thought that was done very well. And choosing the people speaking the languages and like all that, like definitely this film was filmed in all these cities in Europe, but just the authenticity came through very well. Yeah. In the film, and I like that about it. How authentic it felt.
Yeah, the costume design contributed to that too, because like there wasn't one second that I doubted that's what someone in that time would wear. And I was really impressed with that. And all of it comes together to like really engross you in the film and the story. Like it just pulls you in like immediately too. This film starts off and it's like, it starts off hot and it doesn't let go.
Yes,
like,
that's true.
It was grueling to watch it. We paused it a number of times, because it was like, you had to get through it. You were with them the whole way through. You were with them, and people that you grew to care about a lot too. Like even the main character, the pianist, he mentions to his sister like, "I wish I knew you better," and like that's such a little moment, but that's the last thing he said to her.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh my gosh, like. It's little vignettes. There's so many little vignettes that you could take on their own, and it would be like a beautiful short film or a beautiful short story. But all of it together is just like, wow.
And that was him telling her, I have a gut feeling that this is the last time I'm going to see you. Mm-hmm. Definitely that, they knew deep down that was the last time they were going to see each other.
Yeah.
Or that they were going to at least be able to speak in some form of freedom.
Right.
Which they were already not free at that point. But, yeah. What do you think, Hila?
Yeah, I think I'm very quiet. I feel like you guys might not hear. Who knows? I talk, I don't talk. But
okay.
I think one of my favorite things about this film is the passage of time.
Mm-hmm.
And how we literally, like kind of how Josh mentioned, we lived war with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like we grew to care for the same people he cared about, and we grew to understand like what playing the piano meant for him and what his family meant for him and what this was doing to him mentally. And I mean, this is where good acting comes in. He did a great job at being able to portray that, not even with words, just with his actions, the way he looked at people, the way he would, like, I think to me one of my favorite parts was when he would play the piano, the brief times he did.
Yeah.
Especially the one where he played for his life, pretty much, in front of, like, a Nazi German soldier.
Yeah.
And he just got lost in the music. And I feel like that's probably what saved him. His love for music. And I feel like that's why I like this movie. Because... And for the first, like, hour and a half, I was definitely, like, we had our moments where we did pause it, like... Because, and I was definitely having moments where I'm like, what's the point of life? Like, it was just a very...
Yeah, you did mention
I had those moments where I was like, how can we be so upset about such petty things when people have lived through this? Like, how can we worry about the dumb thing that somebody commented on Instagram when, like, people genuinely lived through this? And, and even based on, like, a prior episode, people that lived, in such terrible conditions. Like, how can we be so, like... I wasn't very much like, the world sucks. Why do you care if people don't like your picture on Instagram? That's where I was. But as I kept watching the film, and I think this is where it definitely makes it a different type of film, is that within that terrible, like, horror and sadness and just genuinely evil going around, you saw glimpses of the beauty of people. Like, there is goodness somewhere. And like, you would see people that genuinely try to help Jewish people.
That's right.
And you would see, like, they were genuinely... They knew they could die. They knew that they would get hurt or that their families would get, put in terrible conditions, but they didn't care. Like, and that kind of reminded me of, like, people that can tell their stories now, or were able to tell their stories because of those that sacrifice themselves to protect them, to fight for these people. And I was able to see that in the film, right? And like I said, back to the piano play, although he went through everything he did, he still never lost his love for music. And I think that, to me, that shows that no matter what we do, although we live in this crappy world, we as humans, like, there's something more out there, right? And that's what... Like, towards the end, I was a little bit better off because, like, I saw the little glimpses there. Like I said, the couple that helped him and his friends and things like that. Even the German officer who spared his life, like, it's moments like that where I was like, this really happened and it really sucked. But also, like, people tried to help.
Yeah.
And people, like, yeah, a lot of terrible things happen, but, like, I guess that gave me hope. I don't know if because I'm an optimist, but, like, it just gave me hope, because at the beginning I was like, oh no, like, what if that happens again? Like, what's gonna happen? But then as I kept seeing, and I'm like, you know what? No. It was like, I went through a whole life.
Well, you know what? Because, I mean,
through a whole life thing where I was like, no, like, there are people willing to fight. There are people willing to stand up. And even scenes where, like, the Polish people would fight back. Even if they died, they fought back. And I'm just like,
yeah.
It was just, to me, that's what kind of caught my attention more in the film. Like, there's other things I noticed. Like, there's some aspects of editing I really liked. The time that we literally went through the beginning of war to the end of the war. And that, I feel like that was done very, very well. But to me, what stood out was more of, like, just the hope that there is hope out there. I don't know. That's kind of what I left with it.
Yeah, the character himself goes through this journey that you're describing. So it's like the movie pulls you in, and it's like all he's clinging on to is, oh, hope. There's sometimes he's escaping. He's not eaten for weeks. He's cold. He's overworked, exhausted. And it's like, why does he keep going? And it's for what you're describing, for those moments of joy, for those moments where the sun shines and you're in an open field and you're with your friend, and those little things are what he fought for. And ultimately he got his moment to play the piano with the symphony. Like, at the end, I thought that was a really good reflection of like him fighting for his life, barely getting by with the time that he played with a German officer. And then shortly after that, with the credits were rolling, when it was him playing, and he got the ovation from the audience, and like that helped him to cope in a way. Him knowing that, him having that relationship with music, and it's just like the acting, the story itself was just so, it pulls you into all those elements to feel kind of like the film made you feel what he felt in those ways. And I thought that was really impressive.
I like that. And one thing that I remember now that you guys are talking is what Gila said about his brother, saying when at first they were trying to hide their money.
Yeah.
They were like trying to brainstorm where they should hide the money, and they thought, okay, hide it in the violin, hide it inside of this, hide it under the plant pots. And the brother said, no, just leave it on the table and put a newspaper over it, like basically hide in plain sight. And that's an idea that kept coming back throughout the movie, where he kept hiding in the lines, then literally.
Yeah.
And it was throughout the whole movie, and he kept saying, remember the brother, remember the brother.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a great thing
did come up,
that we see in the movie, where it stayed. It's a principle, I guess, that stayed throughout the whole movie, where he was hiding in plain sight the whole time. And that's how he survived.
Yeah, I think it's curious too, because the characters, like that family, they like stand by their morals. You know, like the reason they stayed in Warsaw was like to prove a point. Like they could have fled potentially, but they believed that it was going to be okay. And he was even more stubborn than the rest of his family too. Like when the Jewish police officer came in to offer him and his brother a job, they both denied him
hard,
really hard. And then you see that that's the guy who gave him his freedom and gave his brother his freedom for a time as well. And it's like maybe to a point, like you can argue potentially they could have been better off if they had accepted, but their principles guided them instead in a different way. And he mentioned a number of times when people told him to flee, not just in the beginning, but throughout the movie, to flee Warsaw, go somewhere else. He was like, no, I'm going to stay here. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die here. And he was stubborn, but he stayed in Warsaw the whole time. And
he did.
And that was, he did what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, he was in Warsaw until he died.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Until he died. So he never actually really left, unless it was for some concert or something. But he definitely never left Warsaw.
So
you're right.
I thought that was very, very interesting because all the characters like they're in it together, you know, and it I mean the way it worked together, that was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. What do you think? Eli, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you guys mentioning it, like I said, it's like them standing by the moors. Like even him, he could have easily done a lot of things, right? He could have taken advantage of people. He could have, but he didn't. Like, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to this film, when it comes to films like these, this is why I don't watch them. They definitely take me to a very like introspective place.
Okay.
Where I don't have much to say because everything happens in my brain. That's
why you have Map. So that you have the opportunity to watch them.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have watched it otherwise. That is very true. And like I said, I don't regret watching it. But yeah, there's definitely other things that I really enjoyed about it. Besides the story and hope that I really liked. I think when it comes to, I guess, like the acting of this guy, right? He won an Oscar, an Academy Award for it.
Right, made out with Halle Berry as well.
Yeah, he did do that. But anyway, when it comes to that, I think that he did a really, like, to be able to see, he's like a normal looking guy. He's not a strong guy. And then like seeing go from someone like that, like, I'm not leaving. I'm going to die here. Like if they're going to die, I was going to, and then to end up like him hiding in like a tiny little hut with like his pickle jar.
Org dog.
Whatever it's called. And like, you can tell like time over time, like his leg and getting a limp and his hands, and I'm just like kind of like, what more can this man, like,
multiple grenades going off.
It got to the point where I'm just like, this man is truly, I'm like, if he dies now, it's like he made it now, like he has to make it through, like,
after everything, he can't die now.
He cannot die now. For a second I was like, if he dies right at the cusp of the end of war, I'm gonna be upset. He did,
and I really didn't know. I really did not know.
Yeah, we did it, and I think that was good.
We were on the fence.
Yeah, I think that's where I was at the beginning, because I was like, oh no. I'm glad we took those pauses in the middle just so that I could breathe. But then, like I said, throughout, I was just like, you know what? He's gonna make it, and I think that. Yeah, one thing I did notice too, like, besides the story, is like everything around it, right? Because we didn't know these people. I don't remember half of these people's names. Like, who are they? Like, who was that? Because everything was so quick. But I feel like things would come back, and I'm like, oh, that's that one guy. Okay. And it was kind of nice. And because you don't remember who they are, and it's been a long journey, the second you see someone, like, you're happy with him.
Yeah.
You're joyful with him. You're like, wow, that was the one guy that I shook hands with before. And the fact that you get to see him again, and you're both, alive and can live to tell what happened. Like, it was just little moments. Like, that's why I feel like I didn't pay attention a lot. I did notice like the bombs and all that stuff going off. I thought that was really interesting and really cool. Also, like the gruesome parts of it, like the dead bodies, and just kind of seeing people walk around like it wasn't a big, there's just a dead person there. Not a big deal, I guess. Or like,
but it's what Josh was saying. Like,
yeah,
they came to a point where they kept becoming complacent. Like, oh, that's the normal now. These dead bodies walking around, and then what else could it get worse? And then it would get worse.
And then they throw a guy in a wheelchair off a 4-story balcony.
Yeah, that was. I did look away for that. I couldn't. There were times I looked away. I'm like, I can't watch this. Like, no. And it wasn't brutally gruesome. It wasn't Tarantino. I feel like that's what made it more sad.
It was more realistic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's more realistic. No, he just does.
It's glorified gore.
He goes into some weird fetish.
And Tarantino's, not this one. This was more realistic.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like that's what made it more sad.
Yeah, I like what you said about him. His, like, at the end, his strength. He had to muster up all the strength that he had left, and he hadn't eaten for like, he was trying to get into that pickle can.
Yeah.
Or what's it called?
Arg dog.
He was trying to get in there because he had nothing left, no energy, and he played, like you said, he played for his life. Where did that strength come from?
Yeah.
It came from hope.
And
it came from nothing. It's where it came from.
The framing of it, him being backlit with a little, like his hair is like a halo around him, and it just takes you to another place. Like the music.
And the image you see when he's playing it, and it shows him and the piano, but with the guy's jacket on top of the piano and his hat.
Yeah.
His German uniform hat and the jacket. And he's on the piano playing, and he's like all disheveled and like looking like he's about to die. Yeah, that image was like crazy. Yeah, like one light coming through. It's like this is it. This is the last light you got. This is your last chance. Yep. But yeah, that strength for him playing the piano came from like nowhere, and he did it. But yeah, when you said he got lost in the music playing that part. Yeah. What must have been his feeling when, okay, I'm done with the piece, I'm done playing. Am I about to die? Right. Or am I about to live? Or it's like, what else is there? But at that moment, he must have felt some kind of accomplishment or some kind of closure. Yeah. For like, this is what my life has come to, and this is it. Because
you've got no choice but to... Like, what is a piano player like him gonna do in that situation? Yeah, and I like that he was honest. He said, "Oh, I mean, how do you make money? I'm a pianist. I'm a piano player." And he's like, "Okay, show me."
Yeah, he could have been like, I knew karate." When I was like, "No, he." Yeah. And even now, that's kind of what I mean. Like, he never lied to anybody. He never hurt anyone else. Like, he genuinely lived through the goodness of other people. That's just it. Like, to me, that's kind of what helped me through this entire movie. Like, the hoping that people would help him, and the hope that he would be like, maybe someone will help me? ? And just, I see. Like, I feel like I don't have a lot to say because a lot of it is just very in my head.
I want to bring up something you mentioned about the editing. Is the scene transitions here, when sometimes they would be with a title card of like the date and the city, but there would be, more often than not, it would fade to black and then come back, kind of like you're blinking or like you're going to sleep and you're waking up the next day. And every time that happened, it was like, okay, he made it to the next day. Like that moment for me was like a moment I could breathe, like, okay. And then, he's just looking out the window, or he's sitting there and I'm like, oh, he's okay, Because when you hit that scene transition, it's like you go to sleep that night and it's like you wake up and you're good. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I got that feeling each time that it would fade to black. I'd be like, and then he'd come back and I'm like, okay, we're good,
Yeah, that's true. For me, it was the dates. Gotcha. I would see like 41. I'm like, all right. 42. I'm like, we're getting there. We're almost there. I'm like hoping. I'm like, because we know, and I feel like that adds suspense for us as the audience, because we know how it ends.
It went on to the mid 40s, so then we're like holding out.
So I'm like, this guy. I'm like, it's only 1941, and this guy's like struggling. I'm like, oh no, we still got like 4 more years to go, 5 more years to go. Like, is he gonna make it? Then it's like 42. You're like, okay, and then 43, and then you go by months, and I'm like, oh my, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I had that moment of realization the second time they showed the date, because the first time it could just be they're opening the movie up with like 1939 or whatever, and I was like, okay, and then they showed like 1940, and I'm like, no, we're going through the whole war.
Yeah, it kind of hits you. You're like, oh no, we're here for the entire ride.
War. This is a movie. It can be called The War Through a Window. Yeah. You see the whole progression of the whole war through a window. Yeah. Living this guy's life, essentially.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting tool narratively to use this man who we can I'm going to say that easily relate to, because it's music. We all listen to music at some point or another.
It transcends language. It transcends culture.
Right, like it doesn't matter, right? Music is music, and it was created for a reason, and it is beautiful. So the fact that this was the thing that connected such a story, kind of like Huba said, how through a window, right? We just saw it through the glimpse of this person, but I feel like that helped us relate to him more because he did something that we all at certain extent appreciate. We've all listened to the pieces he's played.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We've all, like, I heard that once, even if it was in passing and you don't like orchestra or anything like that, you can still be like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. And being able to kind of connect with him through that, I thought that was a really interesting way to help to see such a big thing in a smaller way, and to be able to accept it a little bit more, as in like, okay, I can chew on this, right? Because for a big chunk of the film, he is in a hiding, so you only see little bits of it, and I feel like that helped for us as the audience to see, like, okay, we know what this street looks like, we know what this neighborhood looks like, so when he comes back to it, we're like, wow,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
This
the progression of
went
time
through a lot, because it could have easily focused on other things, or but it I think it worked because we were able to, like, we walked these streets with him. We saw the families being dragged out of here. Like, we saw this, and then you come back and you're like, wow, there's nothing left, right? And I feel like, and that's when you can see that somebody did a great job in creating that change, or creating that shift in time, showing how horrible things were without pulling a Tarantino, right? Like, that's what made it more realistic. It made it like, you show more. I think I said this in the podcast of the last time. Like, you show more by showing less.
Yeah,
and I feel like that,
like the shark
in
the piano.
There's just more power to it. And when I was watching
the shark
this,
in the piano.
Yes.
Wait,
Okay.
the shark
Bruce likes to
playing
play
the
the piano.
piano.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
Okay.
The shark playing the piano. I picture that. Why do I picture that? Anyway, but this also reminded me of, this is just who I am. You have to accept it.
Okay.
A book that I listened to, specifically an audiobook. I was told to listen to the audiobook, and it was a middle grade book, so it was written for a younger audience. And within the audiobook, there's symphonies playing throughout.
Oh,
because symphonies connect all of these different stories, and it starts off during World War II in Germany. And then you see how, like, this kid is, like, deformed. He has, like, a birthmark, so he's not wanted, which is another side of the Nazi part of things that people don't really talk about a lot, because it wasn't just Jewish people, it was just quote-unquote imperfect people.
Okay.
He had, like, a deformity or something, which you can see in Jojo Rabbit, right?
Yeah,
You called him ugly the whole time,
right?
Which he was not. But anyway, in this, you can kind of see through a lens of him how he was treated, and people that were friends with him, a musician actually, was taken away. He was a celloist or something, who was friends with the father, because they loved playing music. So this is kind of what led throughout the entire novel of different stories throughout time.
And the music.
And the music's what connected it, and that's what connected people. That's what, like, the family didn't care that their neighbor, who happened to be a celloist or whatever, was Jewish. Cellist. They didn't care that he was Jewish, because that's not the point. It's just they all loved music. And then when everything started, him as a young kid started to question, like, why are they doing that? So then but then as things happen, and I think his father gets taken away for helping somebody and things like that, the music plays throughout each chapter, or connecting each story in a really beautiful way. So that's why it was so interesting how this film used music. It was cool. I liked it. I feel like it just makes it more grounded for us as audience.
Speaking of grounded, the relationships he had with his family, like with his parents, I thought that was all very, like, realistic. Also, like, that scene, I want us to talk about it, where they're waiting to be put on the trains, and there's a boy selling caramel candies for 20, what the Polish currency was at that time.
Ziglots or something. I forget what it is.
and the family scrounges up everything they have, all the money that they have, to pay for one treat, and the dad cuts it up into 6 pieces for each of them to have one. And all the while you hear people crying in the background, the wailing of a mom who lost their child, and all the soldiers and the barbed wire and everything. But the family is doing what they can to share this moment of like, let's just enjoy this little sweet thing, Like,
yeah.
I feel like I've had those types of moments, like with my parents, like going through something, some intense family thing. But my dad still does his best to like, we'll share a really nice meal tonight or something like that. And it just like kind of brings us together in a special way. Like, I thought the parents, like, they were really special to their kids in the way that they tried to their kids, I say, but to their children in the way that they tried to care for them. Like when his brother and sister came back from wherever they were and they reunited, like, that was such a tender moment. And like, it wasn't like overplayed or over dramatized. It was like, you could see that, you could imagine that, I could imagine that with my family if something like that happened. So I thought that was really impactful in the movie.
Yeah, their family, their parents, or their dad, like you say, I think is probably, he conveyed that sense of a fighting spirit to him, which could also be a reason that helped him along with the music and with, it was maybe his family and the way he was raised. Definitely.
Because the father had been through World War I.
Yeah, he did mention that.
So, and additionally, I don't know how much this factors in, but I think that Roman Polanski may have grown up around World War II as well, the director of the film. So I think he, like, in his life, he's seen a lot of darkness. I'll say that.
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like that is in the movie also.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the family. I think, although, and I think it even connects, like, the whole time I was thinking of his brother whenever he would have him play sight.
You're right.
Because even within their family, it was a big family, right? And their thing was they wanted to stay together. Like, if you're staying, fine, then we're staying. Because half of them wanted to leave. They were packing to go. And because 2 of them didn't want to go, they stayed.
Yeah,
they're like, okay, fine. If we're just gonna stay together.
And there was another moment later on. They had that conversation of like, at least we're together.
Yeah, and to them that was the most important, for them to be together. So when he got pulled aside, like the one guy pulled him out of the way, and he just pulled him out, and he wanted to get back in, and he's like, I just saved your life. Go. Like, in that moment, he had to literally leave his family.
Yeah.
And like, he's like, he most likely would have never seen them again, and he knew that, but he still went. And it's like, and I feel like, I don't know, obviously I'm adding to that, but I feel like maybe he walked away because he knew that's what his family would have wanted him to do. Although at the end of the day, like, because maybe he would have done the same thing for either one of his family members if they were able to somehow free themselves. Yeah. He would have wanted them to go. And I think that us being close to our own family really helped to kind of put that in perspective as well. Like,
yeah, of course.
Oh, okay, yeah, I would want my family to live. And it's just those little glimpses of things. Or even when Josh would freak out when he was, because he liked the girl, right? That was like a big part of it too. And he does get to reunite with her in a way. And Josh was like, oh, that's so awkward. But it's like, it was so interesting to see how, because by that point you kind of forgot that he even had romantic notions for anybody.
That existed.
Right, because you're over here like, is he just gonna live? Is he gonna wake up the next day? Like, is he gonna be working and then a bomb shows up and he dies? Like, and the fact that he was able to reunite with somebody that he cared for at one point, which he sadly couldn't continue with because she wasn't Jewish, and to like be able to see her again, like, it was just like really, like, I don't know, it just made it really human, right? Because like, we've all had feelings for somebody at some point, and even Josh saying like, oh, that is so awkward, like seeing her again after a long time. I'm like, you're right, it is awkward.
You're all dirty and whatever.
And you're like oh, and you're probably right. In that moment, he was probably like, I look like crap. He's like, and this is beautiful woman who I grew to really care for, and we
Mhm.
couldn't be together. And now she's married and she's pregnant.
Oh yeah, they made sure to show her pregnant stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A dramatic
she was
reveal.
pregnant, and then he's like, "Oh, when's the baby due?" And you're kind of feeling for him because
Uh-huh.
at least in that moment you were like, "Man, that
Mm,
sucks, bro. I know you're Jewish and like you
Yeah.
went through all these terrible things, but like I relate.
yeah.
Like that sucks that you got to see the one you care for pregnant with another man's
Mhm.
baby, you know." And obviously, it was such a little thing, but I was like, man, I hope he finds happiness, you know,
Yeah.
like at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, and she was great. Like her and her husband really helped him, you know, to make it through because they were good people. So yeah, I think it was her. It was mostly her and like her husband that really gave me hope. I was like, he met people that were good,
Mhm.
and that gave me a little bit of comfort. I'm like, man, there is hope in this world.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, I give the movie a thumbs up. I recommend it to
Yeah.
other people if
Mhm.
they like war movies and like graphic movies. You know, it can get it's sad. It's a sad movie.
It is sad.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very sad and it's very somber and
Not a
But
first date movie.
no, not whatsoever.
No, definitely
No.
not a first date movie. And I feel like if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety, do not watch this movie.
Hmm.
I feel like in my past life, as in like before I found Jesus and before I got help
Mhm.
and my anxiety was terrible, I would have watched this movie. I would have crumbled. I would have been like,
Mm.
there's no hope in this earth. I'm gonna
Yeah,
like why
this
live?
movie has those moments. It
Like
leans
I
into
had
it.
that moment. Like at the
Yeah.
beginning, I had those moments. I was sitting here and I'm like, why even bother to do anything? Like
Mhm.
why? Like what's the
Yeah.
point? What is the point when the world like this sucks?
Hmm.
The movie touches on that theme twice, and it gives you like the problem, and then sort of like a glimpse of like we've been saying hope. At the beginning, they're seeing all this like I guess tyranny happen, and then his fellow Jewish, a fellow Jew, like an older guy, he says,
Yeah,
if this is happening and we're seeing this, there is no God.
Mm-hmm.
right.
And so then at the end,
You're right.
the next person to mention God to him, like it's God's will for you to live, or
Mhm.
God's will for this to happen,
Is the German officer.
is the German officer. Exactly. So it's like, you know,
Yeah,
it
you're
is
right. The
mentioned.
movie does acknowledge that.
and it's like through where you don't see it coming. You
Mhm.
don't see
Yeah,
a Jewish man say
definitely-
to him, "There is no God," which so understandable why he's saying that because of all
absolutely.
the crap that he's seeing. And then at the end, you don't see
Mhm.
this German Nazi officer say to him,
Right,
"Oh, this is God's
yeah,
will for you
right.
to live, or for this to happen this way. It must be God's will."
Mhm.
So it's like, wow,
Right.
you don't see it coming.
And you don't. And I think that's kind of what, like I said, I went through a lot. I think in one of the pauses I just went off, and they both laughed at me like, what's going
Oh, yeah,
on?
yeah.
Because like it led me to a place where I'm like, people can be really dumb and they focus on the most petty things.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of how I mentioned earlier in the episode, like likes on Instagram. And I know it sounds like you've heard it all, like we should be off. Like no, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, you live your life, you have the freedom to do so. Please live your life how you please. That's between you and whatever. But in general, I feel like nowadays or people in general over time, they care about the smallest of things, including myself. That's why I felt like this movie was like I'm glad I watched it because it kind of brought back like, yeah, the world sucks, there is hope, but also like there's bigger things happening in the world. There's bigger things happening that we should focus on. Even not even that, even like, hey, your family's next to you, spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
Get off your phone, have a meal with your family, have a meal with your loved ones. Like, like you're gonna tell me that you'd rather spend your time scrolling through TikTok, watching people dance and like cats meow, than spend time with your sister, your father, your mom. Like that's kind of where I was. I was like, really? Like this is where we are? We're in the place where we're watching TikTok
We found the movie too.
and watching Pidget and like he's all that.
Hold on, wait.
Oh.
No,
Okay,
leave Paget out of this. Paget
And
is
we're
her name.
sitting there. Well, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that if you're watching with friends. But I'm like, you're talking about these people and you're scrolling, spending hours on, and that includes me. I'm not trying to, this is to me as well, when I could just spend time with friends, family, like, spend more time with God, spend time, praying or just literally resting. Like, I don't know. It definitely was. I needed this.
Or do you want to learn piano now? Maybe.
No, I don't think that was ever my calling.
Your hands are too small.
That is a fact. I can't even put my hand fully around an iPhone.
Oh man.
So I have very short hands, very tiny hands.
My overall thoughts, very sobering movie.
Yeah, they're perfect words.
Yeah, I am glad I watched it. Very beautiful, very artful in its colors and its what's the word I'm looking for? The shots, a lot of close-ups where you see the pure emotion.
Yeah.
And you just fall into Warsaw.
Yeah.
You're there.
You live it.
Yeah. And it's definitely a perspective that I hadn't really seen. It's funny that you picked this movie and then the previous movie I picked had a Nazi connection. And then we did Inglorious before that.
I hope people don't think that this is something that...
this is what this podcast is about.
They want to talk about that. No, it's really... They just happen to be good movies. I didn't know this was going to lean in that hard into it.
No one did. I didn't know either. I would have said, no, we're not watching that.
Yeah, mostly, we go into most of these blind.
That's true.
So that's an element too that's
knowing it's a good movie, we'll watch it. Things have been said about the movie, so that's
right.
That's mostly you guys. All my picks have been purely for nostalgia because I've always wanted to talk about them, and I'm like, now I can.
So, but yeah, it is a recommend for me if you like war movies, especially for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, and that lady, I want to talk about that lady who was sweeping her store.
Oh,
no matter what time of year, no matter what
twice.
day, she was out there.
It was twice, and he was in that apartment for 3 years or something.
She was sweeping. If snow, rain, or shine, dead bodies, tank out there, she would be sweeping that store.
Yeah, good for her. Yeah.
Hey, she wanted
so wait, you're complaining about it?
Does it bother you? That's how she coped and wanted to make things clean?
I just want her to... I don't know, man.
It's her home front or storefront. She has to take care of it. You know?
So you don't want
You
her
definitely
to?
didn't see her sweeping up after this, dead bodies in it. You definitely didn't see her.
Maybe that was just in my head.
Oh. I think she definitely at that point had left. So I don't think she was
I'll have to rewatch it to let you know.
Okay, yeah.
You do that, man. I will not rewatch that movie.
I'll rewatch it with you, and then afterwards we'll watch Schindler's List.
Okay, perfect. A palate cleanser.
Yes,
something
exactly.
easy to
no,
bring it
you
down.
guys can't have fun with that. I'm not. I can't. I go through a really, like I said, introspective place, and I'm just glad this film managed to give me hope.
Good.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it ends very triumphantly.
It does its job, like Josh said. And yeah, I would recommend it to people if they want to specifically see something like this.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's
the
good.
horrors of this.
Right, yeah, in a more realistic way or in a more palatable way.
And to put it into perspective and not to make it not specifically about the war, even though you see war, but about
a grounded story.
Yes.
Yeah, someone who went through this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do recommend it for those who like that part of history. Not that they love it, but they'd like to know about it more. I feel like that's a really good film to watch. Or if you just like film, you know, and you want to appreciate it for what it is, definitely watch it. I'm glad I did. Yeah. You know, that was definitely on my list. It's there now. I will not revisit it. That is a fact. But yeah, I think that's where I would end with my thoughts there.
I think that's a good ending point too.
Yeah. I should apologize for going on a rant, but it's no. You need to look up, enjoy time with your family.
Oh, no,
Get off this podcast.
Just turn us off.
Pet your dog for once.
Go kiss your mom.
Honestly, yes. It's those the little things.
And let her cook for you.
Wait.
Okay.
Is your mom listening?
I don't think so, but I'm about to go get some arepas.
All right, cool.
But in general, just enjoy the little things. Look up and see the world that you live. You know, there's good out there.
Eat some caramel candies.
Yes.
Sure, if you like them.
Yeah. And peanut butter, right? Peanut butter candy?
I love peanut butter. It's so good. I used to not like it. Then I tried it and it was good.
What?
I don't know why you've never liked peanut butter.
Okay, we're getting into a whole other thing.
This is a different tangent.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for this, for listening to us, for sticking around through all of our Nazi movies.
Oh God.
But hey, we're ending in a hopeful note. Okay,
Yeah.
he ended up in a good place, and that makes me very happy.
Good.
So yeah, thank you for listening. Definitely follow us, subscribe, do all the good things, like, share, write a review if you want to, and you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Definitely comment. We like to read the comments. Look, find us on Instagram. We're there, Movie Amigos Podcast. And yeah,
That's right.
I hope that you guys have a fantastic day. That it's cozy. I don't know. I feel really cozy right now because it's cold out.
Oh, good.
So I
And
hope
if you guys want to keep seeing if we watch more Nazi movies, follow us on Letterboxd.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
a good. Yeah, that's a great segue. That's true.
They'll be
I
on the
do-
description.
Yeah,
I
that's
do,
right.
and then you guys can all see all the movies we watch that we don't talk about here, and that's gonna be fun. Because if we like the same movies, we can all be friends.
You can be a movie amigo lumpi.
Yes.
Or if we're not, if we don't like the same movies, we can.
Still talk
Diversity
about
is a
it.
good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And movies.
Okay, yeah.
Wait.
Wait.
Yes.
What?
Wait. In every aspect.
Okay, this is the time to go. Have a blessed day, guys. Have a awesome time. Thank you again. I'm leaving
Diversity
now.
is good. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
I'm leaving. Bye.
Love you, Mom.